What's up, guys? You know that I love me some boxing. So that's why this episode is super important for me. Bringing on a former boxer who is still impacting the sport in his own way. He's got a lot of stories to share with us today, and we're going to be going down memory lane, just kind of conversing back and forth about the sport. But I love the sport of boxing. So whenever I can get a boxer or a fighter on the show, it really helps me just open up because I don't have a ton of opportunities nowadays to actually talk about that stuff. So I'm excited to be sharing with you guys this interview today. I just ask that everybody who's listening to the podcast, whether you're brand new to the show or you've been listening for a while, if you haven't left me a review on Apple Podcasts, please do so. Also, remember, if you guys are interested in, maybe doing some marketing and you want to sponsor the podcast, talk to me. I've got packages for various businesses, for different deals. If you want to sponsor the show and have your name out there, it's in 180 countries, all 50 states, and we're continuing to grow with our listeners. So if you want to get, an affordable way to get your name out there and have some notoriety and credibility, talk to me. I'd love to work with you. You guys don't want to miss this episode of the Game Time Guru. So, what time is it? Game Time Guru! This is the Game Time Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. As you guys know, if you guys are, watching the episode on the video podcast on YouTube, you'll notice our guest that even brought this up today to me right before we started recording, that I have put a couple things in the background. We're trying to get the wall a little bit less bland, if you will, because as you guys know, I'm doing this show from my office. I used to have a studio. I used to try to do this, and I realized I don't need that. All I need is my home office, and that's how I can connect with people and produce the content. But I don't want it to be so bland in the back. So many people worry about the quality, the quality of all the stuff behind you. And I understand there is some aesthetic pleasing, but I want to try to pull the quality of my interviews comes from the guests themselves. And so as you guys can see, I got my Ohio State stuff behind me. I got an Eddie George uniform that just got signed by Eddie himself. So if those who've been following the podcast know that I had Eddie George on the show, and then he just actually sent me my jersey back yesterday. At the time of this recording, it was literally yesterday that I received it. And so I'll be framing that and putting it behind me. So maybe if you guys continue to follow the show, you'll see more stuff behind me on the wall as time goes on. So as you guys heard in the introduction, we're going to be joined by a boxing and fitness expert is the way I would, put that together. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be sharing his story and unboxing all of this journey and how he got to where he's at right now. And you guys know that I'm a former boxer myself, so I really love the sport. And so that's why I'm also excited to have him on the show. His name is Romie Dalal. Did I say it? Dalal?
Yep, that's it.
Dalal. Okay. I won't pronounce the last name anymore. So we got Romie joining us. Romie, thanks for joining the show, brother.
All good, my friend. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to dive into your boxing history as well,
Probably not as exciting as yours, but I will. We'll chat about it, man. So, Romie, real quick, you got the accent. Where are you from, brother?
So I'm from London, born and raised there. 29 years old now, and I'm currently living in California, or Los Angeles to be more precise. And I have been here for nearly 2 years now. So
what brought you over across the pond then to LA?
So long story short, it would be I wanted a career change, which was number one, and I also wanted a challenge. I think that was a big thing. I used to work with my family back home, and I'd been doing that for 4 or 5 years, and then got a little bit, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I wanted to challenge myself. So I thought, why not Los Angeles would be fun.
Why not Los Angeles would be fun? Yeah. Oh man, it's great that you chose Los Angeles. It's awesome. Very high paced way of living over there. I was just down in Southern California a week and a half ago for a basketball tournament that I was coaching in, and we spent 5 days down there. Man, I'm in Idaho, so just if you look at the map, I'm probably about 20 hours driving distance from where you're at, but flying about 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. And it's just every time I go to California, Romie, I'm not kidding you, dude. It's just I'm so grateful to not live there, just because it's so there's so much noise. There's just it's just so fast paced. But
Mhm.
there's a reason that there are people live at a fast pace there, but they're also
Yep.
very successful. So I'm glad you made the jump over there. Are you here by yourself, or do you have family members with you, or close friends that came with you over to LA?
No, I moved all by myself. It was it still doesn't feel like that much of a bold move. I think maybe from the outside looking in it does. But like I said, I was determined to challenge myself and see if I could be successful by myself, which is why I wanted to kind of, do it on my own. That was an important thing for me.
Yeah, man. Like being uncomfortable. And this is where like I will actually I love this because being uncomfortable and being in pressure situations, that's how you make diamonds. I always say, that's the whole saying, no pressure, no diamonds. Like you have to have pressure to make diamonds. And that's how boxing actually was for me. So if you ever, go and look at my show, I'll reference this all the time. Even to my basketball kids I coach, I talk about boxing all the time because I'm like, listen, man, it was one of the best things I've ever done is like competing. And I still train. I just don't compete anymore. But like I loved it for that exact reason. It puts you in uncomfortable situations, which is where growth occurs, like the biggest growth occurs. So that's
Yeah.
cool that you were able to do that. You just jumped into there. So let's rewind the clock a little bit, Romie, and talk about your athletic background then. So obviously we introduced you as a boxing and fitness expert. Was boxing the only sport that you were involved in, or did were you involved in any other traditional sports as you were growing up?
So growing up, I played a lot of football or soccer, as we'd call it over here. But I still refuse to call it soccer. I'll still always call it football. And that was the main sport that I would play mostly at school. I'd have a kick around at home every now and then. But I grew up watching boxing because my dad was a big Mike Tyson fan. So when you're in London and the fights are on, it's usually 4 or 5 in the morning. So
Yeah.
I'd wait up, stay up with him 4 o'clock in the morning. Round one, the bell goes, and then 2 minutes later, it's over, and I'm going to bed. So, I was always fascinated with fighting, and I had a big fascination with Dragon Ball Z, the
Okay.
the cartoon or the anime, and the fighting in there always piqued my interest as well. So I grew up watching that. I grew up watching boxing, and that's kind of what made me want to start, because they take it serious, especially in the show. So self-improvement's a big thing.
Yo, that's actually really cool. Very unique too. The Dragon Ball Z reference in there. Don't
Yep.
hear that all the time. Honestly, that's probably the first time I've heard that in this type of a setting of a conversation. So that's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry to cut you off, but I wouldn't do this on podcast, but I got a Dragon Ball Z tattoo on my leg. It means a lot to me. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but
yeah,
I like
it had an impact on you though. That's like
it.
part of who you are. That's part of your story. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's cool, man. Good for you. That's cool. This is the stuff that I like to hear, like getting to network and understand and build relationships with people like yourself. It's awesome. So Romy, you're okay. You're a football fan. So, who's your club? Who are you cheering for?
Oh, it's funny because I'm from London, but I support Manchester United.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
so funny enough, my dad actually supported Manchester United when I was a kid. So I just followed him. I didn't really understand football too much then, but he supported United, so I supported United. And then as I got older, I realized he didn't even support them. He was just like a glory hunter, and they were winning at the time, so that was his team. But then it was a little bit too late for me to change. So I stuck with them.
Dude, they call it a glory hunter. That we call it a bandwagon fan who just cheers for the
Oh,
winning team. So like a glory hunter, huh? That's what
yeah,
y'all say
yeah.
over there. Oh
Glory
man,
hunters. Yep.
let's go. So I got a question for you. Then I'm sure you're familiar, or at least have heard of the movie Green Street Hooligans.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
not. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Heard of
Is
it.
that a
Haven't
is that a
seen it.
real thing? Are the hooligans a real type of deal over there, where like they back their clubs and they
Yeah,
swing in the
well,
streets?
back in the day, I think I was still a little bit young then, but football hooligans it was part of the culture. I've seen some movies where you would almost be expecting to get into fights with like rival clubs and things like that. People would be getting on the tubes or the trains, on the underground and carrying weapons and stuff like that. So people take it seriously there, some diehard fans. I'm not
Oh
one of
yeah.
I'm not that much of a diehard fan, but I'm not trying to go hit anybody with a pole. But you know,
No, for sure.
some people are like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I always tell people, man, like I served a church mission in Brazil for 2 years, which is weird because it was like a completely different culture, lived in a third world country, but it's like soccer, football was a big, I mean, that's their life down there in
Yeah.
Brazil. And I got to learn about what it really means. Like, it's not just like cheering on your teams. There was a lot of that. Like, I mean, they're very passionate. The whole city
Mhm.
shuts down. There's a lot of the economy is based on their football programs, their football clubs that are down there. It's like, it's huge. So,
Mhm.
okay, so going into your boxing, you were a fan of Mike Tyson. So am I. I like Mike Tyson. Now, I would argue that I always argue that Tyson Fury would beat Mike Tyson. I was like, dude, in their prime, I think Tyson Fury would beat Mike Tyson without question. But I want to know your opinion on that. Having the ties to all of them and understanding the sport. I want to know your thoughts because I have this debate all the time. Maybe
Mhm.
it's recency bias, but I think Tyson Fury would dismantle Tyson in my opinion.
Yeah, well, do you know what it is? I feel like, boxing's changed so much over the last few decades. And yeah, like Tyson Fury is humongous, 6'9", moves like a middleweight. As much as I hate to say it, I also agree with you. I feel like Tyson Fury would cause a lot of problems for him. The way he uses his body weight to tie you up, the way he avoids punches, the way he flicks his jab out is effortless. So yeah, I agree. I think Tyson Fury would cause some problems for Mike Tyson.
I gotta snip this little part for my buddy Daryl Okamika. Shout out to Daryl because he thought I was blasphemous for saying that. I'm like, no, man. I love Mike Tyson. It's no discredit to him, but I don't
Yeah,
know. When you're fighting a 6'9" beast like that, who's just
yeah.
understands how to move and hit, and he's got power. It's not like he's just all finesse. But anyway, I just had to get your opinion on that. So Romy, is what was the like when you started to like obviously being a fan of the sport is one thing, enjoying watching Mike Tyson, the early morning fights, like you were saying over there.
Mhm.
But another thing is like actually put the gloves on and train. So when was the first time you actually set foot in the gym and decided, hey, like I kind of want to train in this sport too?
It was kind of late for me. I was I want to say, yeah, 15.
Okay.
15 was when I put gloves on for the first time. I used to watch a lot of Bruce Lee as well when I was younger. I used to love his films. So I used to practice in my room before I kind of got to the gym. I didn't really know what the hell I was doing, but I used to read his books and I used to practice in the mirror in my room. And it was cool because his books used to have like little diagrams of drawings of how to punch and how to kick and things like that. So I was really interested in his philosophy of how fighting is so mental. And it is. You hear it all the time in boxing. It's 80% mental and 20% physical. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people, would easily choose that to say that it's more physical than mental, but you find out who you really are, when you put those gloves on and when you get in the ring.
Totally, man. And it's
Mhm.
cool that you say that because I kind of relate to you. I started when I was 15 as well at a Golden Gloves facility here in Boise as a Golden Gloves gym, Boise, Idaho. But I also I had a martial arts background doing Kempo karate and stuff. And
Mhm.
I read some books on boxing and I learned how to punch and I would train by myself in my garage. So it actually, like,
Yeah,
as stupid as that sounds, like I actually
yeah.
did know how to throw punches and rotate my feet and understand where my hand placement should be. I just had never actually been in a ring and
Mhm.
gotten
Mhm.
some official training. But that's funny, man, because as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, I started late too. But talk to me about that, Romy. When you get into the gym, do you remember what the first time was like when you actually started sparring with somebody
Oh,
else where you're actually taking hits?
yeah, I think the first time I started sparring was when I was, I think maybe like end of 60, like 16, like nearly 17, maybe like 16 and a half. And you typically you don't get to spar until coaches have seen you in the gym. They see you showing up time after time, and they're like, okay, we think he's ready. And I ended up getting into the ring with this one guy who was so unorthodox. For me, I always found it tough sparring the guys who didn't really know what they were doing, because
Yes.
it's so much harder to predict what they're gonna do. Um, and this guy was so much heavier than me. He's like this fat guy. And bro, he hit me with a jab right in my face. I remember my head snapped back. I remember I looking at the lights, like as he hit me with the jab. I remember just seeing the lights on the ceiling. Um, and that was my first ever sparring session. That's all I remember. I got in the ring. I was scared. My heart was racing, and I took a stiff jab to the nose. That was my first time sparring.
Oh man, but it's awesome. I wish I had that benefit. They actually put me in the ring my second night training at that facility, and they even told my mom, Romy. They told my mom before she signed the waiver for me to go in there. Oh, we won't put him in the ring for 3 months until he's ready. They said at least 90 days. No, dude. And then as for the 3.5 years that I trained at that gym,
Mm-hmm.
that they never waited. It was always like the next day or the second day
Yeah.
they were at the gym, they'd put him in the ring. So they lied totally just to let the parents be at ease. But anyway, I'm in there with a gentleman who was quite lighter than me actually, and my heart was racing. So I'm relating to you when you're talking about that. My heart was racing, but I was trying to make sure that like he didn't know I was scared. So I was just throwing out a jab just to
Yeah.
make sure he knew that I wasn't scared to throw a punch. But it was a
Mm-hmm.
lazy jab, and he came over with an overhand right.
Yeah.
So similar to you saying you got snapped back. Well, he hit me with an overhand right that did the same thing. It popped me, and I'm like,
My God.
oh wow, all right,
Yeah.
well here we go. Like, and
Yeah.
here's the cool thing though, and maybe you felt similar. So I want to ask you this: like, when you get hit, a lot of people are scared to take shots in life. They're scared to take shots in boxing. But did it like show you? There was a phrase in Green Street Hooligans where he said, once you realize you're not made of glass, like
Mm-hmm.
you start to build a little confidence. Did you feel that like that was similar to you? Like when you took a jab to the face, did you realize like, okay, it hurts, but like I can
Oh,
take a shot?
yeah. Well, it's more my temperament changes where it's like, oh, he landed on me, now I want to land on him, if that makes sense. Um,
Yes.
in the boxing gym that I was at was I was one of the smaller ones there. So I was used to sparring bigger guys. Like it was very normal for me. And even when I would be get hit by those guys, it was the same thing every time. Now that you've hit me, it takes that first shot just to wake you up a little bit, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now I'm awake, and then you go, but definitely, and I feel like it's one of those things that you can't teach. I feel like you have it or you don't. Um you're either the hammer or the nail. One or the other. So um maybe as time goes on, you get a little bit more confident in yourself. But yeah, as soon as I get hit, I'm switched on, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. So here's a question I have for you too. Having been you're an expert in the industry, you're an expert in the sport. You understand like what it takes. What I what I've noticed in anything, and this is in any sport, but I want to get your opinion on it. Sometimes we're scared to attack, right? So sometimes we are scared to go on the offensive because we're scared of getting hit back. And that's in boxing. Sometimes guys are like, they'll sit there and they're kind of timid because they know that if they throw a punch wherever it's at, they're leaving something open if a guy can counter. They know that. So there's ways that you have to go about it. Same thing in basketball. Like sometimes guys are just scared to open up and go. And
Hmm.
so they limit their potential. And that's the same thing in life. Sometimes we're scared to take risks because we're scared of what's going to come about. I guess I would ask you this, Romie, in your experience in boxing, how did that help you overcome that particular fear? Because it happens so much. I've seen it in a lot of athletes where they're scared to be on the offensive. They're scared to throw those punches, so to speak, because they're scared of getting hit. How
Hmm.
do you overcome that so you're throwing punches with confidence rather than being timid?
Well, I would say, well, the first thing is, if people being scared of committing to punches is normal, because our body's natural response is to not want to get hit. It doesn't mean you're scared. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just a natural reflex. Um, what I would say is two things. Sometimes when you throw, you have to throw with intent and be confident that you're going to land. But before you even do that, you have to be able to set up shots. You can't just come in blindly with a jab, or you can't come in blindly with a right hand. You have to kind of work on defensive maneuvers and making sure your feet are right before you do any of that. Because I think a lot of people disregard how important defending and footwork is. Because if your feet aren't right, you're gonna lunge in. You're gonna take too big a step. Um, After you've thrown the shot, if your feet are wrong, it's going to be hard for you to get out or hard for you to slip or roll. So the first thing is just making sure that you're confident with your feet, getting in and out, nice and simple. So when you throw that shot, you move your head. You hear it all the time: hit and move, hit and move. So that would be that would be the second thing. Number one, sometimes you have to just go for it and commit. And the second thing is just don't wait there after you throw, throw and move. But also, one thing I love to throw is a lot of feints, and you see Tyson Fury do it all the time. You got it, you have to be downloading data in there. You have to be finding patterns, you have to be finding rhythm. And feints are so good at that, because you feint a couple times, you try and get a reaction. You're like, oh, okay, he's dropped his lead hand a couple times every time I feint. Now I'm going to feint and shoot. It gives you a little bit more confidence in your shot. So I would say those three things, throw with intent, footwork, and be confident with moving your head, and lots of feints.
No, I dig that. You're not wrong. Fury, if you ever want to, you can love him or hate him, right? Some people get rubbed the wrong way by Fury and his personality.
Mhm.
I personally like him, but I can see why he'd be a little bit frustrating for some people. But
Yeah.
one of the things is, though, like when you watch him box, if you want to just see him as a boxer, he is phenomenal at what he does. Like the little intricacies of the sport, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to move his feet. He can
Mhm.
hit powerfully. He can hold your head down and wear you down over the course of a fight. He
Yep.
can do feints. He does the things that you're supposed to do. So, and he also sells pay-per-views by
Yeah.
running his mouth quite a bit. So he
Exactly.
knows the business side of it too.
Yep.
Um, if you look back at it, you've talked about, you referenced 20% mental, 80% physical. Knowing what you know now, Romie, like, how would you, if you're giving advice to a boxer that wants to come up, or any athlete for that matter, but we'll talk boxing, how would you, advise them to prepare their mind? You're in the ring, and what does that even mean? Because they're going to say, well, you're getting punched. That's physical. You're getting, like,
Mhm.
you just mentioned footwork. You mentioned feinting. You mentioned moving. That's all physical. So what on the mental side, how would you prepare the mental side for these athletes to, like, get in there if that's truly what's the dominant,
Mhm.
aspect of the game?
Yeah. So if we can think about it like this, if if I get in the ring to spar with someone who has, roughly this similar amount of experience to me, you know, we're probably not going to be too far apart skill wise. I might be better at some things, he might be better at some things. But if he goes in completely confident and I'm not, and I'm really doubting myself, and I'm hesitant, and I'm scared to throw, I'm scared to commit, whereas he technically might be not as good as me, but he has all the confidence in the world. He comes forward, he throws his jab. you know I was the victim of that, because I had no confidence. I used to doubt myself all the time. And sometimes my coaches used to pull me to the side and be like, you're better than this guy. Like, your confidence is your lack of confidence is what's holding you back. And me having to experience that, and someone telling me, was like, oh, okay, like I kind of understand it now. And in terms of preparation, I I think it's one of those things where you just have to do it, and going back towards being comfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that
Yep.
makes sense. Every time we spar, or every time I sparred, I got nervous, you know. Um, Now, if I have to spar 4 times a week, I'm going to be nervous 4 times a week. But I'm slowly going to get used to being nervous and kind of understanding it. And now I'm like, okay, I'm nervous, but rather than letting it overwhelm me, I'm used to it now. I'm nervous 4 times a week. It's no biggie. And then you kind of get comfortable being in that place. And then also you start to realize that being nervous is a good thing, because now you're on edge, now you're focused, now you're sharp, because you're scared. And there's a difference between being scared of, like, for me, whenever I was scared, it was more, I was scared of me not filling my potential, or me being embarrassed. It was never me scared of being hurt. But back to my point of understanding the nerves, um it's one of those things where you'll only get there by putting yourself in that situation. Like, I don't think you can prepare for it. No matter, you could sit there for years, like mentally preparing, but the minute you get in the ring and someone starts trying to hit you, it kind of all goes out the window. You have to it just comes from experience, I would say.
I like that. Okay, yeah, totally makes sense, man. Totally makes sense. You kind of have to experience it. That's just life in general, too. You don't know what you don't know. Like, you can prepare for it, but that's why you should be, in my opinion, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, like, just to learn and grow from that in life. Just so you know, that's business, sports, whatever. Um, This is something that I want to ask you too, Romie. In your experience, boxing, you can prepare for a lot of things, but sometimes you get clipped. Sometimes you're going to get caught with something that it sucks,
Mhm.
and it can put you in a bad situation. Like for me, coming from when I was younger, I had a busted nose, so I had to have surgery on my nose. So anytime I get hit in the nose, it just pour blood. Like that's just how it's always been. Even if I'm playing basketball to this day, I'm 34 years old, I still compete. So like
Yep.
in basketball and stuff. So if I get popped in the nose in basketball, it's just pouring blood.
Mhm.
So what sucked is in the boxing ring though, is if my nose was bleeding, all of a sudden I couldn't breathe out my nose, which
Yep.
does disrupt my rhythm and timing because then I'm more tired because my heart's racing. I can't just relax. So
Mhm.
there was things that I had to learn how to do when I'd get caught while I'm fighting. If my nose was pouring blood, I needed to learn how to breathe out breathe out my mouth and still
Mhm.
stay calm
Mhm.
without leaving myself vulnerable to get caught with my mouth wide open. So just little things like that, like learning to stay calm. I'm just curious, how do you deal, or how did you deal with getting caught, so to speak? Like, how would you deal when you're doing fine, but all of a sudden you get blindsided? And it's the same thing in life, but I just want to know how you were able to get through those situations where you got clipped or you got caught.
I think it depends on the shot or the shot you get hit with, because some of them you don't see. Sometimes you completely, it comes out of nowhere and you get caught, and then other times you kind of see. For a body shot, like I've been dropped more times with body shots than shots to the head. Um, and I think the ones that you see are more, oh, okay, I would try and figure out what I did wrong or what he did right, if that makes sense. And then quite try to quickly adapt. Um, but sometimes when you're in there, everything's moving so quick, you almost don't have any time to process it, especially when you get hit with the punches that you don't see. You kind of, I feel like that's why it's so important to have someone good in your corner, so
Yeah.
that the round's done. Okay, Romie, this is what happened. This is what you need to do. Blah blah blah. Because sometimes things are moving so quickly, or not sometimes, like they are moving so quickly. That's just the way it is. So I think just being relaxed and not dwelling on it is a big thing. Like move on. It's happened. If you do know what you did wrong, great, fix it. If you don't, then just continue to stay relaxed and stick to the game plan, and that's it. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
Ah, simplistic. See, you're keeping it simple, and I think it's a big piece because a lot of people overcomplicate those types of things. Now, just move on, like process it and move on. That's actually a really good mindset. It's like I interviewed a guy named Trevor Moawad. He was Russell Wilson's mental coach. He was his consultant, and he just taught them to like a neutral mindset is what he calls it. Okay, this happened, good or bad, cool. Process it. We stick to this next step of the thing.
Mhm.
You mentioned body shots. I was going to ask you this at the end of the interview after I talked about the business side of things, but as we, get to the last 5-10 minutes right now, I'll ask you the body shots. You mentioned you've been dropped by body shots. People were talking about, Ryan Garcia getting dropped by a body shot, getting ended by Davis and with a body shot. And I was like, guys, you don't understand. Like,
Yep.
he might have looked like he was smiling, and we can debate whether or not, Garcia was like how bad he really felt. But I said, listen,
Mhm.
man, I've been hit with a few of them myself, and you don't
Yep.
understand how bad they hurt. You might be fine 20 seconds later, which
Yeah.
I'm sure Garcia felt like, but during those 10 seconds you've got to get up, you can't breathe. And then you're
Mhm.
fine like 20 seconds later, and it looks like, oh, well, he could have fought. No, you could have
Yeah.
fought if you had 30 seconds to get up, but you didn't have 30 seconds to get up. You got 10. So
Exactly.
talk to me about the body shots, because people just don't get it, Romie. They don't understand unless you've actually been hit with one. They
Yeah.
suck.
But you know what it is? It's like your body just shuts down. Like you
Yes.
don't choose to take the knee. Like your body just does it itself. You get hit. 2 seconds later, you feel it, and you're on the ground. Like that's the only way I can describe it. You don't choose. Like when you really get caught, you don't choose to take the knee, or you don't choose to to um to roll over in pain. You get hit with the shot, you go down. It's as simple as that. Um, the reason why Ryan's one was tough because he was throwing at the same time. Those are the ones that are the hardest to come back from, because he was wide open, and as you're exhaling when you throw and then you get caught. I think he got caught in the liver as well. I'm pretty sure, but
Mhm.
well, it was a nasty shot. Like you're saying, you hit the nail on the head. If you had 30 seconds to get up, you would have been fine. But when you got 10, it's tough. There's not much you can do.
Yeah, 100%, man. So there's a memory I had. A guy named Jamar. He was 4 years into boxing. I was a year and a half into my boxing journey, but he was super good at our gym, and he was 2 years younger than me, which was embarrassing because at the time I was in high school. At this time I was almost 18, so he was 16. But like back then, it was like, oh, you got beat up by a 16-year-old. Like people would make fun of me, like that's a sophomore in high school over here. I'm like, dude, no, you don't understand. Kid's like a monstrous athlete. But anyway, they were telling him, and Romy, we're in the middle of a sparring session, which for people who don't know, I just want to make this disclaimer. When I'm saying sparring, sometimes people see sparring on like Instagram and stuff, and they think it's like the 60% like tap tap tap. Our sparring sessions in boxing were a bit bigger than the fights. Sometimes, like we would go 100%, and it was like bloodier and more damage than a fight. And we go longer than our actual fights. Our fights were 3 rounds in the amateurs for the most part, and so it was like, no,
Yep.
dude, we'd be going for like 25 minutes
Yep.
sometimes. So anyway, I want people to know that like sparring, when I'm referencing sparring, it was actually more intense than the fights. So they were like, Jamar, quit being a headhunter, because he was just trying to take my head off. And I was actually being able to move with him. He was much more skilled than me. But as soon as they said that, I was like leaned over, wide open in the stomach. Bam, he hits me. And it almost was like an uppercut because of the way I was leaned over, and he hits me. And I mean, it was instant. I was like, I couldn't do anything. I covered up my head and leaned against the ropes. But even leaning against the ropes to try to move was
Yeah.
making me need to breathe more. And so I
Yeah.
couldn't breathe. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, oh
And,
man.
and
And people
and
don't
the
get it.
worst, yeah, the worst thing is you try and keep a poker face on to show that you're not hurt. The minute someone sees your face go, it's like they smell blood, and they come in for the kill. So, when you get hit with those shots, you have to try and hide it as well as you can.
Yeah, dude. And you're just sitting there. And then by the end, dude, I was like beat red in the face because I couldn't breathe and I'm sweating like a pig. The end of the round, and I go to the corner and I'm just like trying to like act like nothing happened. But I'm like, damn, dude, that hurt bad. That
Yeah.
was a bad shot. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's just good to hear someone like yourself talk about like the thing. So, Romie, as you look at your boxing career and just like the lessons learned through practicing, through competing and all that, what would you say is the biggest life lesson boxing has taught you up until this point?
Um, I would say, when we talk about the feelings and emotions in boxing that you feel, it's very raw and it's very real. It's extremely raw. It's the most cleanest form of emotion I feel because there's no cloudiness. It's like you have real fear or real nerves or real excitement or real happiness. It's extremely raw. And being able to understand how I feel when I'm nervous or how I feel when I'm worried. Um, Now, whenever I go into life situations and that feeling of nerves hits me, I feel like I've been there so many times that it's not overwhelming anymore. So I would say that that's probably the biggest thing it's taught me is how to manage my feelings a lot better and understand them and learn to embrace them rather than try and hide from them.
Ooh, that's big, man. That's big.
Mhm.
What's your favorite memory? Can you remember a memory of like the training and competing days that sticks out to you?
Yeah. So there was this one time where we used to have this massive guy in the gym. He's like in amateurs. He was a super heavyweight. He's like 6'3", 225 pounds. And when I was boxing, I was 135. I'm 5'10". I was skinny, like
Oh
very
wow,
skinny.
yeah.
Almost like similar build to like Devin Haney, just not as ripped. Still lean, but just not as ripped as him. Um, and there was only three of us who turned up to training that day, and we had to spar. And I'm like, okay, sure, like I'm down to spar because my ego would sometimes get in the way. I didn't realize how stupid this is. Like this man is like nearly 100 pounds heavier than me, and not only is he like a very very good boxer. I think that there's a British boxer called Derek Chisora. He fought
Mhm.
Klitschko, he's fought Fury, and this guy was one of Derek Chisora's sparring partners.
Ah, he's at that level.
Yeah, and this is the guy that I'm now in the ring with. So the first round, he's just allowed to use his jab, nothing else. And my coach is screaming at me to get in. He's forcing me move my head, try and get in and land some shots. And I'm just getting in my mind. I was like, oh, I'm pretty fast. And I'm like, I'm going to be much faster than this guy. He's 100 pounds heavier than me. I'm telling you, when he threw his jab, it came out so quick. It's like someone threw a 5-pound dumbbell at my head. My head's
Oh.
never snapped back so badly in my life. Um, anyway, it was fine. I was tired. The next round, he goes open spar. He can use both hands. Now I'm like, now this is the first time now I'm like worried. I'm like, shit, okay, I need to be careful here. So he walks me down to the ropes. He holds his hand on my head and he throws the two. This is like 15 seconds into the round. And it felt like Thor's hammer, bang, on my head. I've never hit the canvas so quick in my entire life. I got a concussion actually, and I was wearing a head guard. Yeah, he he put me down so sorry, my language. He put me down so quick. I don't even remember falling. Like he hit me and then I was on the ground. Like that's all I remember. And that was the only time I've ever been dropped with a headshot ever. All the other times I was dropped with a body shot, but that's why whenever I think of my one standout experience, it was getting in the ring with that guy. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's wild, man. Yeah, dude. Oh my gosh. Like some
yeah.
dudes are they're built that way. What's funny though, you mentioned that. So currently I said at 6'2", 220 is what I'm at right now. I'm not competing. When I fought, I was at 185. And
Mhm.
back then in the amateurs, at least where I was at, like you could be within 16 pounds of your competitor. It was weird how it all worked out. So I was actually a light heavyweight because some of the guys I would fight were hovering around 200 pounds.
Yep.
And I was always like right at 185 at the time when I was in really, really good shape. But I always told people, man, so Romie, like you said, oh, yeah, I was, 5'10, 135. Everyone's like, oh, they're tiny little dudes. No,
Mhm.
man. The dude I told you I sparred my very first time in the ring, the second day of practice ever, he was a 145er. And
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, man, some of y'all can snap punches and they
Oh,
pop
yeah.
my head back. And so, like, I don't know. Don't mess with the little dudes because y'all
Yeah.
know how to throw punches quick and they snap and
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
spark you.
Yeah. We we the speed and the timing sometimes is so good because a lot a lot of times people don't talk about timing. People don't talk about it, talk about the importance of it. And no matter how fast you are, if someone has better timing than you, they're going to tear you to pieces. And sometimes the little ones timing so good, they're dangerous to get in the ring with sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah, they are. They're way dangerous. So, props to you though for having the guts to get in there and fight a dude who's nearly 100 pounds heavier at that level as well. Romie, as you now, like as we're wrapping up the interview, I kind of want to know about your business experience. You've taken what you've learned in your life. Now you're living in Los Angeles. You're doing things. So talk to us about what you're doing now in this field and taking your experience to continue on making an impact in this specific field, this industry.
Sure, yeah. So long story short, the family business back home was teaching, like childcare. Like I used to be a teacher.
Okay.
So I also have a passion for teaching. So it's almost like I'm combining the passion for boxing and teaching, and kind of spreading knowledge that way, to everyone I come across with. I love to learn. I am extremely passionate about the sport, and the more you think the realize you actually know nothing. When it comes down to it, like the more you dive in, like there's so much to learn. So yeah, like I'm coaching clients. I coach out of a gym. That's kind of what I'm trying to build right now. And for everyone, like boxing is so beneficial for men, women, children, like, the discipline, that the life lessons it teaches you, that there's no disadvantages to boxing, in my opinion. You get fitter, you get stronger, you get more confident. So I'm trying to, I'm trying to, come across as many people as I can, and help them become a better version of themselves through this. And, whatever lessons they learn, more power to them. And, hopefully they can pass it on to the next.
Absolutely, man. So let's say, so is it only local right now where you're training these people in house?
Yeah. So the gym I coach out of is in West Hollywood area in Los Angeles. So as time goes on, I'm starting to put together, or trying to put together, a course where people can sign up for a course and learn that way. That's in the works. I'm not sure when that's gonna be out, but it's like very early stages at the moment. But
Yeah.
that would be my way of trying to reach out to more people rather than, just in person.
Yeah. But you're building your base here locally in Los Angeles, and then potentially later online, you'll meet more people. So for those who are listening, I do have quite a few listeners in California, and if they're interested, I want to know, like, where is this located? Like, how can they contact you? Do you guys have a website? Do you have a phone number or any contact information online where they can get
Yes.
a hold of you?
Yeah. So the gym is called Members Only. And I think the easiest way, so the Instagram for the gym is at membersonly.fit. And my Instagram is just Romie Boxing, so ROMIE Boxing. And yeah, you can send a message to me or send a message to the gym, and we'd be happy to throw you in a class and put some headgear on you. And no, I'm joking. But yeah, we would be more than happy to have anyone who wants to come along.
Super cool. So what I'm going to do for the listeners of the show right now, like if you guys are watching this or if you're listening to it on the audio podcast, check the description of the podcast, which you've probably already done by now. We're going to have the links to the Instagram pages, and then you guys can check that out if you want to take advantage of Romie's services over there and train with him over at the gym. Contact them and get that. That's the whole point of this. You guys got to know his story. You got to see why he's where he's at right now and doing what he's doing. So contact him. And then I'll just tell you, Romie, if you ever need help, like putting something online, like I work for a company called ClickFunnels. I'm all into the marketing space. Been doing that for 5.5 years. I work with entrepreneurs all day long that like put their businesses online. That's literally what I do outside of doing this podcast. So if you ever need help with any of that, you got my number or my email, and we can exchange contact information. That goes out to anybody who's all listening to this too. Just let me know, and I can always help out. Want to give back any way that I can. So I'm looking forward to seeing the growth. Last thing I would say is this. I want to ask you one question to wrap up the interview. If there's a kid out there who, male, female, who is thinking, hey, I'm interested in boxing, but I'm scared of this or this, or I'm not sure about this or this. Why should someone box? Why should someone take advantage of your services that you provide? Or why should somebody even go into a gym and put the gloves on? What is the main reason? You mentioned a couple of different things that they can gain from it, but what is the main reason they should do it?
I would say that anything worth having in life, is you have to have some adversity. Anything worth achieving. If it was easy to have a six-pack, everyone would have one. If it was easy to be a millionaire, everyone would be one. But it's not. So going to a boxing gym is extremely intimidating, but the value you will get from it, you will never look back. And you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be worried. Even when you get there, you still might be a little bit nervous. But we all know if you persevere with anything in life, you'll be able to reap the benefits down the road. So to those, to the kids who are thinking about doing it, just take a deep breath, make your way to the gym, walk in, and give it a go for a couple weeks. Be consistent with it. Try your best. If it's not for you, that's fine. But give it a go for a couple weeks, see how it goes, and take it from there.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Romie Dalal, who has blessed us with his presence today. I appreciate you, Romie, for joining me and taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your story. And we're going to be looking forward to seeing where you go from here. Thank you so much, man.
Cool. Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. For those who are listening, make sure you subscribe to the show. If you guys enjoyed this, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and let us know what you thought of Romie's story. And we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.